Well, hello, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's going to be a great day. I've got some exciting things to share with you. And we're just going to take a minute to make sure all our tech issues are in order. Still people checking in. We're trying to stay, we want to stay on time today and respect everybody's time. The meeting was arranged for between 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock, and I really want to stick to that. You may have babysitting issues, or you may have to pick up kids, or whatever the situation, or have another plan for the day. So that's all great. So we're going to stick to it and get started here as we go. So I wanted to make sure that you have everybody has their mic muted and the camera's on, and I see that's happening. Welcome, welcome. Hey, James. Hey, Carol. How are you? All good. Nice to see you. Okay. Jacqueline, great to see you. Uh, so I would like the chat window is open right now, and so if you would like to put in, I would like to see you put in your city that you're in, and just so we know where you're from. And if you could also put a little note in there what your art is, or what you want it to be, because everybody is at a different position, everybody's at a different level. Some of you may be professionals. Some of you may be, just starting and wanting to get into some type of a creative life, and some of you may be in between there somewhere. So wherever you are, just put a little note in chat if you could, just to give me a little direction. I'm going to tell you all about me, so it's only fair that I know a little bit about you. And that is for one purpose. So I can be tuned into you, so I can understand you and and direct my my coaching to your needs, because this is not about me talking to you for 3 days. This is about you making a transition into a healthier creative life and outlook. So there's lots of stuff that we're going to cover. This challenge, by the way, is my first. Okay. So it's a great example of the creative process, which is all about what we're going to be talking about. It's kind of like if I can make the analogy of a painting. Now, some of you aren't painters. Some of you are involved in other. Maybe you're a sculptor. Maybe you're a photographer. Maybe you're a potter. Maybe you're an author or interested in writing. Maybe you just write poetry. Whatever it might be. It's all still a creative process. Could be a musician writing songs. But so what I'm doing right now, I'm illustrating a creative process, okay? Because this is the first presentation like this that I have made. Now, I have written in the past, I mean, I've written a lot of poetry, short stories, 5 books I've written now. But the thing is, sometimes you start. I remember the first book I wrote, really, well, maybe the second. I just had this little picture in my mind of a little kind of one scene of a little something that could happen to a person. I started writing it. I should maybe make a page here and tell this little thing. I wrote the page. Then there was 3 pages written. Excuse me one moment. Just want to check this. I got a ding on my phone, and it's in case it's a participant that is trying to get into the meeting. I just want to make sure that's not the issue. Okay, I don't know how that's from, but it looks like someone's having some tech problems. So I'll just keep going. So anyways, I turned around, I had 3 pages. And I just kind of kept writing because the story was like the little story seemed to be evolving. And I turned around. A few minutes later, I had 11 pages because one scene, whatever happened in that scene, set up the next one. So I would write through the next one. When I got to the next one, I said, well, this character in my story must be going through something emotionally or mentally. I should relate that to maybe something that he happened when he was a child. So I wrote that in. I turned around and I was like 3 or 4 chapters in on the first sit down at writing. Well, the book ended up 300 pages. Published it, selling it on Amazon. so, so that is the way the creative process works. You start, you don't exactly know where you're going. Like when I'm doing a painting, for instance, I can have a vision in my head of what I want to see, or maybe I have a photographic reference, but I'm looking at a blank white canvas. Then I'm looking at paint on my palette and my brushes. I think, how am I going to put all this together and make this image? So I can't look ahead and say, okay, on the 500th brush stroke, where will it be and where will I put it? No, you don't have all that information. It unfolds, okay? It unfolds. But in order for any creative project to unfold, you have to have the faith that that is going to happen successfully, okay? And you have to take a risk that you're willing to take. Am I going to ruin this canvas? Am I going to waste the paint? Whatever. You have to take a risk. It's an investment. What about the time? For the next 2 hours, I could be doing something else, or I could be doing this. So that's the kind of some of the processes that you go through. So to start, I have to say, for any change to take place in a person's mind or life, you have to start with honesty. You have to be able to look at yourself like you're critiquing something and say, and you have to be honest with yourself to know where you're at, to admit where you're at, to admit your weaknesses or your flaws or whatever. We all have them. It's not an issue of embarrassment or judgment or anything like that. We all have them. We're all a process. We're all an unfinished product. Okay, so so we have to be honest so that we can grow. So that's what we're going to do, and that's what I'm going to do. That's my greatest hope for this is to be transparent, to reveal who I am, and I'm going to do that by telling us some of the stories of my life. Okay, in those stories there are lessons. I don't know if any of you have read my book. I believe some of you have. And it's creating the artistic journey of your lifetime or that you dream of. And so anyways, some of this I go over in that, but we're elaborating on it now. So basically what I would like to do here, the 30,000 foot view of what I hope will accomplish is to inspire you, okay? To inspire you and to turn years into days. And so they can understand that. What I mean by that is you can struggle for the next several years, next several months or years, maybe decades. Maybe you've already struggled for several years and find yourself not proceeding as quickly, as successfully as you had always hoped that you would. Well, I want to take that learning curve and compress it from years into 3 days. But this is just a start. Obviously, there has to be a period of time where you have to work on your skills development, and you have to learn the things that you need to learn to create whatever you're going to create. If you're creating music, you may have to learn your scales better. May have to learn your harmonies. You may have to fine tune your lyric writing. There's a lot of things that you got to know. So at any rate, the hope is that you are better today than you were yesterday. And you'll be better tomorrow than you were today. And that's the whole idea. There's a saying that says, those who aim at nothing will hit it every time. So we've got to have goals. We've got to have project an image of what we want to do. And where we want to end up. Now, there are problems that present themselves to us, such as I don't have time. I really don't have time to sit down, excuse me, and do anything creative. I've got this to do. I've got that to do. I really don't feel well that good today. Listen, my family has always said, what's the point? You're not a genius. It's not going to be anything incredible. And who would want to be an artist anyways? And I mean, there are so many blocks. And then, of course, all those things that have been communicated to you become a block as you believe in them. We've seen in the political landscape lately, the last few years, how when you tell a lie often enough, it becomes accepted as the truth. And that's what happens. And especially it's what happens when you're a child, when you're growing up. Who are you listening to? You're listening to your mom and dad. The two people that have carry the most influence on you are the ones sending you messages. They're not the only ones. Okay. It's grandparents, it's teachers, it's your peers, it's societal norms that give you the messages that maybe you're just not good enough. Maybe you need more. And so we're going to challenge all of those mindsets, because mindset is huge. That's what all this is about. So I want to start off anyways, telling you a little bit more of my life so you can get to know me. I was very fortunate to be born into a family with a mom and dad who loved me enough to see something in me and encourage it. And I'll tell you how it started. I was probably 5 years old or whatever. And I developed this little game where we'd have a pencil and paper or pen and paper, and I'd get my mom or my dad to make a little squiggle, just a little something that fast, a few little lines like that. And I would make something out of that. And I would sometimes have to turn the page this way or turn it that way, upside down maybe. And I'd see something. I'd see, if I can add an eye here and some teeth there or whatever, some hair here, whatever. I'd make a little face out of it, a little cartoon face, or maybe it'd be a crazy little animal or something. And so anyways, they thought that was quite clever. So they praised me for it. I thought, well, that's wonderful. Gee, look how good I am. So anyways, that developed. I think we called it squiggles, and it carried on for a couple of years till I grew out of it. Eventually, I found myself taking a great interest in this skill I had. Apparently, this apparent talent. I did find out that with spending hours doing this, that my imagination was always clicking, and I found that I could draw things that my peers, my little kid friends, couldn't do. I was comfortable with a crayon in my hand where they were awkward. So you see, that's how it develops. But it starts with believing in yourself. They made me believe in me. Why wouldn't I believe in me? They believed in me. and they love me. So they must be telling the truth that I am valuable in that respect and I have talent. So I grew up thinking I have talent. I would lay for hours under my dining room table and with my drawing pad and just draw. I would get books out from the library. Well, they would take me to the library and I would get books out from the library. It was Renaissance, basically. It was like all the art books that were available back then. It was just Renaissance, all the great masters. And I would look at their these full color paintings like for hours and just blowing me away. And I would be trying to copy little sections or faces or whatever. And that's what I would do. In the background, on the big stereo, big giant stereo, mom and dad would be playing classical music. So classical music was pouring into me, very inspirational. And I was looking at these incredible scenes of biblical scenes that were amazing, because that's what they painted back then. So at any rate, that grew. There was an event that happened when I was 10 years old. And to tell the story, my father, here's the setup. My father worked for Canadian National Railways for 40 years. And being an employee, he got free train passes, rail passes every summer. So when school was out, my brother John and I, we would get together with my mom, who grew up in the Western Canada. And she had 5 brothers and sisters scattered through all the cities. So we would take off and we would be gone basically the whole summer. We'd have 2 weeks in Regina, 2 weeks in Winnipeg, 2 weeks in Saskatoon, 2 weeks in Calgary, and 2 weeks in Vancouver. And that was pretty much, the summer. So you'd come back. But at any rate, that was what was going on. But when we got out, I think it was Calgary, there was a little place called Happy Valley. And this was supposed to be like a family place, but essentially it was supposed to be like an amusement park. But believe me, it was nothing like Wonderland or, nowhere near. It was basically a big kind of a valley, a little valley, and a couple of concessions, ice cream or whatever. And there was no big rides or anything. It was kind of like a big playground. But on one side of the area there was this little brown brick building. We didn't know what it was, but when we got close, we found it was an art gallery. So mom and dad said, "Do you want to go in, Bobby?" And you can look around. Of course, they could tell I wanted to go in. And they said, "We'll come back in like an hour or hour and a half or whatever. But whenever you stay in there, and we'll come and get you." Days were safer back then. You could leave a 10-year-old child. So I went in and it was life-changing. It was life-changing. There was paintings in there from some artist. I wish I knew his name. They were like 6 feet by 8 feet. They were like mural-sized paintings. And I don't remember anybody else being in the gallery but me. I don't even remember an attendant in there or anything. All I saw was the art. And I went up and they were all biblical scenes. Okay. There was David in the lion's den and, all these different scenes. And I went up to one painting and it was Jesus Christ on the cross, crucified. And I looked up at this painting. I was standing little me below it. And the artist had painted drips of blood. And he put globs of red paint, like thick, like they were like 3D. And I reached my finger up to touch the blood. And as I did, it was like lightning bolt hit me. It's like a shock hit me. I don't know what happened to me that moment. But at any rate, after a time, mom and dad called me out of the gallery. I came out. I was very quiet. And after just a couple of minutes, mom said, what's going on, Bobby? And she lifted my head up. I was streaming with tears. My face was wet with tears. It was extremely, I get emotional right now thinking about it. So that was an amazing event in my life. And it was, what was it? What was it? What was it about? It was about God. It was about art. It was about Bobby. They were connected somehow. Oh, there's Simba. That's one of my little studio cats. They're always down here with me. Anyways, so that was what happened. Anyways, let's go on with the story. I was 10 years old. A few years went by. 16 years old, I got involved in music. Of course, I was drawing and stuff all that time. 16 years old, got involved with music. When I was 16, I had been in high school for 2 years, and I was a horrible student. I was just like the class clown. It was the high school to me was always about, it was just about having fun. I had a couple of odd buddies that I was probably odd like them, but whatever, all we did was laugh, you know. And so at any rate, those were the days that you had to have 65%. I mean, you could fail every subject. You could fail science and geography and history and social sciences or whatever, but you had to get 65% in both English and math. So in my final exam in grade 10, I got 14 in math and 10 in English. And I think half of the marks in English was because I spelled my name right. So at any rate, I think the school looked at me and said, this guy's going to be here until he's 30. Like, there's no hope. There's no hope for Arrigo. So at any rate, they had an award in the school, which was the most improved art student in the school, because art was one of their art projects. And they gave me that award. And what that did was it provided me a way to go and study fine art downtown in Toronto, out of my jurisdiction, because back then, I don't know what it's like now, but you had to go to school in the area that you live in. You just can't go to another area of the city and go into one of their schools. So this was what they called, I think, a bursary. It wasn't it was a bursary anyways. So at any rate, it paid the way for me to go downtown. So I went into art school. I was 16 years old, and we took life drawing, life painting, still life, sculpture. I mean, real sculpture with metal, with stone, with clay. It was great. We took silversmithing. Actually, this ring that I'm wearing is something that I made back then. It's got a tiger's eye in it. And anyways, I just found it recently, a couple of months ago. I found it and I hadn't seen it for years and years. So I put it on. Anyways, we did that. We did everything. We didn't have a book. I never saw a book again in school. Anyways, I went 3 years there studying everything, living the dream. It was fantastic. I was 16. I started getting into music. The Beatles were out, changing the world. I began singing. Of course, I had all this background, this classical stuff in my head from youth, and then I was getting into all rock and roll and all of that. And so at any rate, I learned how to play guitar. I learned how to play piano, self-taught. I learned flute. I learned drums. I was a multi-instrumentalist, but basically, essentially, I was the front man of the band. Every band I was in, I was the singer. So at any rate, that was all good. And I graduated from the school and I went on. I wasn't ready to go out working. I had hair down to here, if you can believe it. Stop laughing. And those were the days, my friend. Anyways, and so anyways, I was heavily into the band. I wasn't going to deviate from that. I was going to make that my life. I had decided on it. And at any rate, so I wasn't ready to go and start work. Had been offered a job actually as a um, as an artist. I forget the term right now. Working with the police department, a sketch artist. Working with the police department and doing sketches back then. Nothing was computerized, of course. It was all sketching. Someone would give a description of what a certain criminal looked like or whatever, and I would sketch it. So I was offered the job, but I had hair down to here, and I wasn't about to work with the police back then. So I said, I think pass. So I applied for admission into a brand new school, which was a brand new college. It was a Sheridan College of Applied Arts and Technology, and that's in Oakville, Ontario. I got in as the very first year that the college opened. We had this massive canvas, massive. Could have taken thousands of students. It was 300 of us. That was it. I took animation and cinematography. 2 years. Meanwhile, I was doing music. I was getting more and more into music, writing music. It was just awesome. I ended up with school ended. I went on the road with my band, toured for it was a few years, anyways. And at any rate, the band scene got tired for me. And I said, no, I'm going to start writing and I devote myself to writing. I did. I set up my room as like a studio. I had met the girl that I fell in love with, that I'm still massively in love with after 48 years. My girl Bonnie, I love her to death. Anyways, we had moved into a little flat above a store. I had set up the main room like a studio. I had a grand piano in there, an upright grand, and I had mics. I had reel-to-reel recordings. I had everything, and I wrote music all day, sometimes all night. Bonnie worked. This was a year and a half. She worked, supported me. I made no money at all, but I did get representation from an awesome manager. He managed Ronnie Hawkins for 11 years. Ronnie Hawkins, if you don't know, if you're from the States listening or from wherever, he was the top musical act in Canada for several years. So I had his manager. He was managing me now. He could go into any studio in the country. He could go to LA, Nashville, New York, wherever, no appointment, walk into the president's office and slam a tape down on the desk and say, listen to this, no appointment. You know what I mean? Everybody knew. When John Lennon and Yoko Ono came to Toronto back then, and I don't know what year it was, early 70s, whatever, for the War Is Over promotion they were doing, they actually stayed at Heavy's farm for security purposes until they were ready to go downtown and do their sleep-in thing. So that's the level that this fellow was at. Anyways, he took my music, he took it to LA, took it to New York, took it everywhere. And he was due to come back and at a certain date, and he never connected with me. But no cell phones back then, right? No text messages, no emails, nothing. So anyways, I called. I waited 3 weeks. I called, but I had his daughter's phone number. So I said, what's with Heavy? That was his name, Heavy Andrews. What's with Heavy? Where is he? Has he been delayed? And she said, oh my God, I should have called you. Heavy came home. He went into the hospital. He had a perforated ulcers, stomach ulcers. He was a heavy drinker, always carried a bottle of liquor in his briefcase, whatever. He said they opened him up, they dealt with the ulcers, and he was a mess inside. They sewed him up. He lasted a week and died in the hospital. So I had nobody to follow up on my music. You have to have someone representing you. That was it. That was the big disappointment. I had put so much time into this. So I started migrating back to art. I got involved in macrame was coming on big at the time. The art of tying knots. I got into it big time, instantly, just like that. I loved it. I fell in love with it. Working with all these fiber arts and wood and driftwood and all kinds of stuff I was putting in it, and not making just plant hangers like you see these plant hangers. No, I was doing sculpture, 3D with knots, little formed houses, like all kinds of things, and selling, doing wholesale with major fiber art pieces of wall hangings for De Boer's Furniture, which was the highest end furniture company in Toronto at the time for several years. At any rate, I got noticed by a publisher who published 3 books on how to do macrame, and they were all my work. So at any rate, that was cool. That was interesting. For years after I had gotten into this and everything, for years I had people saying, "Bob, what's going on with music?" I mean, what do you mean you're not doing music? It was unbelievable. 10 years later, I was still having people stopping me saying, "What about music?" By then, I was doing art again. So you see how when you have, so I'm going to stop that story right there, do a little bit of teaching for a minute. Let me express it this way. I believe that there is a creative force in the universe. Okay, there has to be. Look what's been created. There has to be an energy that creates. Okay, this light stand, my mouse, somebody had to design it. Somebody had to conceptualize what it was going to look like. I mean, maybe somebody said something. We need a little thing that, you can operate your computer. Well, what should it look like? Well, I don't know. Maybe it should have a button. Maybe it should be this big. It's got to fit in the palm of your hand, whatever. My microphone, someone had to design that. Everything you look at, someone designed through the creative process. So there is a creative power in the universe. Now, you may call it your higher power. You may call it a super conscious, or you may call it the universe, whatever. But I want to take, so there's no confusion, I want to take all of those concepts and just call them God, so I can talk without repeating them all. So I'm going to say God. So I believe that God is the creative power in the universe. And I believe that he has created me and you, and all things have been created. So we have that creative DNA, because if he's going to create us fashioned after him, created mankind in his image, then we are creative. Now, don't look at God as gets up in the morning, puts his shoes and socks on, and goes about his day's work. He's not a physical person. If anything, he's spirit, a spiritual being, and we are spiritual beings. So the creative nature exists in our spiritual being. And that is natural for us to be creative. Mankind is inventive. Full stop. There's nothing that we are denied when we put this creative instinct to work. So that being the case, to me, it's not something that can be denied. It's our natural purpose in life to be creating. Okay. That's just the way I think. I don't know what your concept of God would be, and it really doesn't matter. What matters to me is that you understand that to engage your creativity, you need inspiration. To be inspired, there are certain things that you need. You need to get rid of the things that are blocking inspiration. Well, what is blocking? What is blocking? There's self-doubt. Um, there's well, you could put in the chat what might be blocking you. Was it something somebody said? What did you come to believe that is limiting you? Excuse me. Because everybody has boundaries, right? You have limits and boundaries when it comes to your relationships. Okay, I'll go this far, but I won't go that far. You've got boundaries when it comes to your budget. I can go this far, but I can't go that far. There's boundaries everywhere. And everything is getting either better or worse. Where are you on the scale? Your relationships are getting better, or are they getting worse? Your finances getting better, or are they getting worse? Your health better, worse? The weather better or worse? Everything is getting better or worse. So where are you on that perspective? And I'm thinking that maybe you're plateauing right now. I'm thinking maybe you're at a place where you're maybe stuck. I'm going to bring in a whiteboard for a moment. So I want you to have a look at this. This is a little illustration I've made, okay? Now, if you see these 4 points, I'm thinking that you may be somewhere on one of these points. Let's just come with me for this ride for a minute. We start here, and we start discovering the joy of creative expression when we're kids. This is the child artist right here. The child artist learning to love to create. These were the happiest times in our lives when we were coloring and pasting and gluing and doing all those things you do in kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, whatever. And we're growing up here. Now we get to here, and we get to a place maybe where, like I was, 16 or so, and we get into an art school, or we have influence by someone we meet who gets us on a course of accelerated learning. We get to a certain point, and we can't go any further. What's blocking us? So we plateau. And we move along the plateau. These could be months, it could be years, it could be decades. Then we hit our first job. We're doing art all this time, doing our creative thing, whatever it is, all this time. But then we have our first job. So our time commitment has to go down, okay? We still keep trying. But then marriage comes along, or a significant relationship, or something like that, or maybe a huge job commitment where we have to go overseas or whatever. We remember, oh yeah, creative. Oh yeah, oh no, that's not going to work. Now the kids have come along, okay, whatever. Life happens. I completely understand life happens, believe me. So we may be down here somewhere right now, plateauing. You understand there's art, but basically you kind of forgot about it. Now, at a certain point in life, and this could be, hey, these could be 25 years old, could be 65, could be 75, whatever age. You remember about art. You remember your life seems to be missing some pieces and you need some more fulfillment. So you start climbing the ladder again. You realize, no, it's not going to work. You need a coach. So Bob Arrigo comes along, or someone else comes along and starts coaching you. You start ascending again. Okay, a couple of steps, an effort there, more growth, more effort, more growth. You're finally heading in the right direction. So this is just, when you see what this is, you could be anywhere here, could be anywhere, and it doesn't have to be these steps that I've put. But it's just a sample. Okay, it's just an idea. So the thing is, one of the things that block us terribly is fear. Okay, fear of the unknown, fear of what other people are going to think, their opinions, fear of how you're going to be perceived. What are you wasting your time doing this creative thing for? Don't you know there's bigger, more important things in life? My opinion? No. Nothing is more important than your natural instinct to be creative, to be true to who you are as a creative, spiritually connected being. But here's a little story about fear. Do you know the difference between a cow and a buffalo? When a storm comes, and that storm could be anything in life, okay? This is just representative. The storm comes, and the cow sees it coming. It's coming at him. The cow turns around and runs away. The storm is on his back, and he's running, and he's keeping up with the storm. He stays in the storm for a long time because he's trying to run away from it. The buffalo sees the storm. He charges straight into it, so the storm goes right past him and he's out of it. He's out of it very quickly because they're both moving fast. The cow, he struggles along forever in the storm. So when you see something that you're afraid of, like some of those things I mentioned, judgment from others, whatever, or the feeling of I'm just not good enough. Why am I trying at this? It's not going to measure up. I've proven it to myself 100 times. I'm just not good enough. Look at this guy's paintings. Look at that person's paintings. They're incredible. I'll never get there. Why would I even try? Those types of thoughts, that's the storm. That storm you have to charge into, or at least you have to creep into it. You have to face it. Okay. And then once you do, you're going to look back a little bit and say, wow, I didn't die. I'm still alive. Now, there's a thing with artists. There's a process, okay? The process kind of goes like this. You have a fantastic image of a painting in your mind, okay? The artist looks at this blank canvas and he looks at his photo reference, or if he's painting on in plein air outside, he looks at this scene, he says, looks back at the canvas and says, this is going to be awesome. Awesome. It's going to be awesome. And he starts painting. After a little while, he says, gee, this is not as easy as I thought it was going to be. A little while later, it's, this is crap. I'm crap. He keeps painting because after all, he's got all this paint out. A little while later, he says, well, this isn't looking too bad. Hey, this is looking pretty good. This is awesome. I am awesome. That happens. I got to tell you, that happens. So there's a process. You have to move into the storm, go through the storm. Don't run along. Don't get caught up in it. Go through it. Okay. And that's the way that works. So when I was 18 years old, I was living in a I was living in a flat. Yeah. I was living in a flat above in a home with my good buddy, lifelong buddy. We knew each other since kindergarten, Peter. Pete and I lived in this little place. And I was 18. I hadn't met my wife. I met my wife when I was 23, but I was 18 now, and heavily involved in music and everything. And hadn't read a book in my life. I've looked at a lot of pictures, but I hadn't read a book. And so at any rate, I was waiting for a date. I was going on a date that night with a girl I wanted to get together with. But around just after dinner time, Pete walked in with a friend of ours that I knew as well, Kirk. And Kirk threw a book down on the bed and said, "Hey, Bob, you should read this." And he said, "You like art? You should read this." So I looked at the book, and it was like 8 inches square, 8 or 10 inches. It was about an inch and a half thick. Big book. And I thought, oh yeah, like I'm going to read that, So I opened it up and it was full. Every page was full of little drawings, like, really primitive little drawings, just line drawings by somebody who obviously wasn't an artist at all. But the pages were thick, like parchment almost, and it was very, very organic, this book. So I loved the feel of the pages. It attracted me right away because of the pages, because of the drawings, and then all the text. There was text on every page, but it wasn't paragraphs. It was like a couple of sentences and written by hand, kind of thing. And the book was called "Be Here Now, Be Now Here." It was written by Dr. Richard Albert Ness. Dr. Richard Albert Ness, if you don't know the name, you probably don't. He was partnering with Dr. Timothy Leary. So back then, this was here in 1968, LSD. Timothy Leary was doing all kinds of experiments with LSD and Richard Albert Ness as well. Richard got to the point where he said, it's going woo, right? So he said he went to Tibet and he said, I'm going to become a monk. Okay. So he went to Tibet, shaved his head, became a monk. They gave him a new name, Baba Ram Das. For the rest of his life, he was Baba Ram Das. Timothy Leary was back in California getting all the publicity and all the, attention. He never heard of Dr. Richard Albert Ness again. So Baba Ram Das wrote this book. It was full of Eastern philosophy and things he had learned while he was doing acid, and just kind of it was amazing stuff, really. A lot of truth, and it was just great. Anyways, it captivated me. I'm sure if I read it now, maybe I'd have questions about some of it, but it captivated me because of the drawings. Every page was something new, and I did funny squiggles or spirals or something. He'd do diagrams and whatever, talk about the universe. So I started looking at the book. The next thing I knew, it was the next morning. I had read the book straight through the night. Okay. Totally forgot about the girl. Totally forgot. That's terrible. But at any rate, that book changed my life. That's the second day that changed my life. Okay, so from that point, from 18 to 28, the next 10 years of my life, all I did was, well, not all I did, but I was on a massive quest for truth. And I studied most of all of the world religions. Buddhism, Taoism, Rosicrucianism. I've read the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita a number of times, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. It just goes on and on and on. I did so much stuff. Peter Demyanovich Ouspensky, the Russian mathematician, philosophy, described the universe, how it was made in terms of math. I couldn't believe I was getting into this. The book was this thick. I was reading all this math stuff. I was obsessed. Went to bed every night for a year and a half with tarot cards spread right across the bed, trying to find the truth, okay, trying to find reality. And so at any rate, at 28 years old, of course, I was raised Catholic, not strict Catholic by any means either, they said I was Catholic. My mom had given me a Bible at some point when I was a teenager. Well, no, some point since in the last few years. And she said, something inside the cover said something like, "In your quest for truth, here's a Bible," whatever the message was. I don't recall. But anyways, I always said, well, they don't have to worry about, Christianity because I've always got the Bible back there. But anyways, I kind of run out of world religions to study, so I started reading the Bible. I read the Bible. It changed my life. And I became a devoted Christian and still am. And I've never looked back. I've never questioned truth anymore. I discovered who I am because I found out who my creator was. At least that's what I believe. Okay. No apologies. That's what I believe. So at any rate, that's what fires me, and that's what fills me with faith to go on and to believe in who I am. And so that's just my story. So I'll move on from there, but I think we should take a little bit of a break right now. So I am going to just stop the meeting and have a little break, and then we'll come back in 10 minutes. So come back in 10 minutes and we'll continue from there. Thanks a lot.